bad boy Palladio stuff here. The Villa Rotonda, Palazzo Chiaricati. This is Santa Maria Novella. So if you want to draw like this, large drawings. Let's talk a bit about the classical architecture. This is obviously Baroque, and we are going to have a look at a bit of Renaissance as well. As well as Mannerist, because it's a Palladio stuff. It's the bad boy Palladio stuff here. The Villa Rotonda, Palazzo Chiaricati, the Capitoline Hill, and San Pietro plazas, Il Gesù, Palazzo Carignano, and a couple of details, right? And yeah, if you look at these drawings, you are going to be shocked because they seem like probably seem like they're impossible to do. So if you're just starting off, like, whoa, how can you draw something like this? You know, just look at this. This is going, by the way, towards Renaissance. We'll just skip this for a bit. Let's focus on the Baroque. What I want you to understand is that you know, you need to look beyond the image. Okay, these are drawings done in probably close to 8 hours, maybe 8 to 10 hours. Yeah, and obviously my courses kind of cover everything, you know, starting point wise, right? Because you can't really know how a drawing is going to look like. Although it's a monument, the reality of pen on paper is that you never ever know how the drawing is going to look like. You see, like, some of them have a bit of a more interesting layout. So the Il Gesù here is like on top. It's like acting like a foreground. It's like the image is overlapping a bit, and then you've got all this empty space here to put the Chiaricati and the Villa Rotonda, like with a bit of a reflection. So you see, this is actually a really good image. It's probably lacking a bit from graphics, like the hatching isn't as good as I'd like it to be, but regardless, it's very, very, very good here as well. All right. So obviously a bit of a proportion mistake here. This is good. This is good. This is good. This has got a perspective mistake, by the way. Always keep the line, the horizon line, where it needs to be. You don't want a weird, you know, drone level perspective, right? You want a normal ground level perspective. Okay, so this should be looking something like this. Okay, and yeah, we are, you know, in the freehand architecture courses, we are, and lessons, we are covering all of this. It's very important that you understand the historical phenomenon of this type of architecture, how it evolved from Neolithic architecture, and how it's going to slowly stop at eclectic and then start with modernist architecture. And yeah, obviously to draw something like this, step number one, you sketch a thumbnail sketch of it. Okay, I think my students drew them on separate sheets of paper because you can't see them here. But when you, let's say the Villa Rotonda, you sketch it in a small thumbnail sketch first, and then when you start the large drawing, it's going to be really easy to finish it. Okay, you start off, you feel you go for the you need to feel the volumes, of course, but you need to also go for the 4-step formula. If you remember, we talked about this. Short recap: number 1, fill the page with lines, fill page lines. Number 2, ruler, right? So get the crisp edges, right? Number 3, hatching, which is for materials and shadows, right? And number 4, thicken, right? Thicken shadows, right? So the gist of this is that if you stick to this with the freehand architecture courses and with everything here, the formula, you can draw stuff like this, which is very, very impressive. So imagine you know, you adding this in your portfolio, or you want to you know, just you're an architect and you never understood this stuff, right? You always couldn't get your head around it. Well, you start, you do it now, and you build up the skill set which you were lacking for years and years and years. Yeah, mannerism, this is just beyond the Renaissance. Obviously there's perspective mistakes here and there. What can you do? So if you draw this, probably the dome would be somewhere closer in for the Villa Rotunda. And the graphics are a bit, they're kind of bad here. Why? Well, there's that instinct, and hopefully when you're watching my videos you get used to the absolute reality that you need to take notes. So everything I've said here, right, about the thumbnail sketches, about this perspective mistake here, hopefully you've already taken notes on this. You don't want to have a lot of filler space, right? You see, this is filler, just a lot of hatching which doesn't really mean anything. This is the correct way of doing things, right? Very juicy line drawing, and then you just hatch it with a couple of perspective mistakes. So obviously they slip. What can you do? Don't forget, 80% of all drawing is line drawing, right? So the line drawing is your drawing, and 20% is hatching. So you can see the student from here. 1 second. They kind of, yeah, it's probably 60 to 40. So too much hatching, it looks bad. Okay. Going back a bit towards the Renaissance. Florence Dome here, very nice. I would actually add some cityscape in the back. It's like that cityscape would be the foreground for it's probably San Andrea Mantua. The Party Chapel, the Ospedali degli Innocenti, the Tempietto. I have actually a diagram with all the architecture monuments and the architecture styles, but so if Il Gesù was the other one, this is Santa Maria Novella, if I remember right, and this is Palazzo Farnese, right? Early Renaissance. You see how, going back to the Baroque, again, very, very rough introduction, because to be honest, there's no point in discussing this stuff. You need to draw it. If you draw it, then you feel it and you understand it. The Baroque has these curves, these interesting organic shapes, right? Even detailing here, okay? The Mannerist is kind of playing a bit with the concepts. So first you have Renaissance, which is sorry, early and advanced. Then you move on to Mannerism, and then you move on to the Baroque, okay? So the Baroque, which is the third one, right? Progression. It obviously has like these weird curves, these very interesting organic shapes. Looking at this is very, very good. This is a very good drawing. So if you want to draw like this, large drawings, always exaggerate with, make your drawings like 30% larger, right? Than you would instinctively would, okay? The Baroque, okay, going back, Mannerism is kind of playing around with full space and empty space. Like this is empty and you've got like full on top, okay? So kind of like Corbusier, if you remember Corbusier, right, in the modernism. So this goes way in the future, right? Advanced modernism could be Corbusier, right? And if you go back to Renaissance, people were just like reinventing architecture. They were just playing with perspective, with a new style. I think the Ospedale degli Innocenti is a bit too tall. It needs to be longer, right? And these arches need to be lower down. Palazzo Farnese, I think, needs to be a bit. It's too bulky right now. It needs to be closer to something like this. Tempietto is nice. Yeah, and again, going back, draw large drawings from the first attempt. You see, it's probably 50% of this page here is wasted. And you can cover it up with hatching. You can trick it with perspective, so you have like detailing here and like a cityscape here. But I propose you avoid these mistakes from the get-go. This could be good, very delicate, very sensitive. yeah, this is a shocking image, like a lot of line drawing. But again, if you stick to the way I'm teaching you architecture drawing, the freehand architecture way, you will be good to go. Some of these things will click 100% from the first go, some of them won't, and you need to kind of focus on them, like really focus your mind on getting them. But regardless, you will get the skill set. And yeah, once you understand these buildings, then you're set. You learn them once and you've got them for the rest of your life. This is very interesting here, but a bit too emotional. Emotion sometimes distracts from the reality. Okay, so like the cityscape here is too vague. Again, this is the best image. This is probably a B+, right? For an A, a bit more contrast would be needed. So if I just get a darker color, right, for all this really cool line drawing, you need to, no, you need to have really strong cast shadows. Okay, just to make everything pop off the page. Right. See, this is going to look very interesting from a distance. It looks like it's got that spatial depth. When drawing Renaissance or classical architecture in general, I would go for Renaissance because it's the most obvious, where they started this stuff. By the way, don't forget, sorry, jumping from one thing to another, that you need to understand that this is an analytical architecture, AA. So it's meant for your eye to jump from one element to the other, like just in the Patti Chapel, right? There's a lot of detailing, so your eye jumps from one to the other, and that's what makes it interesting. Okay, this looks like it's got chicken pox right now, right? So your eye just keeps jumping from one element to the other, like here, bam, 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 right? That's number one. And number two, I want you to understand the ratio of horizontal lines and vertical ones. Let me just get these with red, right? Because this is what generates true Renaissance, right? The balance between horizontals, the rhythm of horizontals, and the verticals. Okay, and obviously you can use this in all your designs. Just looking like a design that I have now, it's like an A2 sheet on the wall. I forgot about this stuff, you know, I know about it, I forgot to apply it, right? And if you do this, if you apply these Renaissance wisdoms, so to speak, you get that extra edge to your work, okay? It reads in your plans and in your designs. Okay, so hopefully you've taken notes, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care, draw nicely. So if you want to take your architectural drawing and design skills to levels you never thought possible, get that portfolio for architecture school, get those skills that you can learn from going to university, then visit me on my website, freehandarchitecture.com. I've got a fair bit of information here. You can see a couple of my students' drawings, what they did, how they progressed. You also have free videos, free lessons. This is me sketching here from the live lessons. We are going to talk about architecture, interior design, product design, architecture history, landscape design, urban design, everything. Have a look at the courses here, right? They shared on my website. If you are really determined, then feel free to click on the little box on the right and drop me a line. I'll get back to you within 24 hours and we are going to start the architecture drawing lessons after. Take care, draw nicely.